the cloud. Okay, we have 27 people in there so far, so let's go. Okay.
Lots of people.
What did you say, Jonathan?
No one has a lovely Ireland background like me, though. Yeah.
I like that. Yes. Okay. Welcome, everyone. I see we are up to about 30 people so far. We're just going to wait a little bit till everyone has had a chance to join us. I have you on mute, but if you notice below, there's a little chat button. So if you have any questions during the webinar, you're welcome to put your question in there. While we're just waiting, tell me where you're joining us from tonight. Use the chat box down there and type it in.
I'm joining you from the west coast of Ireland. Very sunny.
I see that. Anyone else in Toronto, where Jonathan is right now? We've got some from Edson, Alberta. I know we have a few joining us from Ontario, but I don't know if they're in here yet. We still have more coming.
Alberta here.
Very good.
There's Kelowna and Manville and Edson.
Awesome. So some from BC. So we are spreading across Canada, all the way from Ontario to BC so far. I wonder what everyone's been doing, keeping themselves busy during self-isolation. Type it in the chat box below if you want to share. Right below, if you move your mouse to the bottom, you'll see a chat box down there, and you can click on that and type it in. What have you been doing to keep busy during self-isolation?
Yes, Jen and Piggy are.
We can see you.
Good.
Yeah. We have a huge crowd tonight. So what I'm going to probably do is mute everyone, just because it will keep background noise to a minimum. Jonathan and I will try and be quiet ourselves. So, yeah. And that way we have, I think, somewhere up towards 90 people coming on tonight to join us. So it'll be a big party. We'll just wait. What time is it? I have just after 7. We'll maybe wait a couple more minutes. A few more coming into the waiting room. I'll just keep clicking. Jonathan, are you able to see the waiting room, being that you're co-hosting with me?
Yeah, I can. If you want to, I can keep letting people in if you like.
Okay. If you keep letting people in, I'll start chatting.
No problem.
We can start talking. Okay. So like I said, we have about 90 people joining us tonight. We have some from BC, Alberta. The majority of us will be from Alberta. We're also coming in from Saskatchewan and Ontario tonight. So I'm going to start with introducing myself, and then we will get on to talking Ireland, everything about Ireland with Jonathan from Royal Irish Tours, which I'll introduce to you in a short bit. I still hear a little bit. I have it on mute all, but okay. So my name is Leah. I am with Go Travel here in Edson. I have clients though all across Canada, even some in the US. So I have been a travel agent for about 5 years now. Seems to go by very quickly. But before that, I was a teacher. I had a cafe, a coffee bar here in Edson called the Funky Fork. I am a mother to 3 kids, and my husband is a chiropractor here in Edson. So what, I guess in 2018, I was invited to go visit Ireland with the Irish Tourism Board. And Jonathan at the time was working for them with Tourism Ireland. And I really wasn't real excited about going to Ireland. I had never really thought about it a whole lot. It wasn't at the top of my bucket list anyways, but I always just thought, oh, it's cold and it's dreary there. The weather isn't so great and I hate being cold. All they eat is lamb and potatoes. But when I actually went to Ireland, I was blown away. They eat much more than just lamb. There's seafood on every menu that we went to when we were visiting Ireland. And they eat potato, but in like 10 different ways. So, and every way is just as delicious as the first. So that was one thing that I was surprised about. The other thing that I was surprised about is how mild it is in Ireland. It wasn't cold and dreary all the time. We went in October and it was about plus 12 every day. Even at night, it was 12 above. So not bad at all. You could just dress in layers and have like a windbreaker on, which was perfect for the weather that we had in October. It was gorgeous, really. And so the other thing that I was really blown away by, not just the weather and the food, but the scenery. It's gorgeous in Ireland. It's lush. You've all seen the pictures. It has a bit of a mysterious feel to it. And one thing that I really remember about Ireland is the people. They are so welcoming and it's like you've known them forever. Something that they always talk about in Ireland is good crack. And at first when we heard that expression, we were wondering what in the world crack was in Ireland. But it is a Gaelic word, I guess it's a Gaelic word, and it means fun time, entertainment, good conversation. So we hope that tonight you'll experience some of that, a little bit of good crack, and perhaps down the road, you'll be able to head over to Ireland and really experience what mighty good crack is. So I'm going to introduce to you now Jonathan. He is with Royal Irish Tours. He is from Ireland originally and now resides in Toronto. So Jonathan helped a little bit in putting together my group tour that I took over to Ireland last May. And then he will also be helping me with my Scottish tour, which is happening next September 2021. We'll talk more about that at the end of this, but yeah, so Jonathan, I'll pass it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Leah. And thank you. Thanks for having me. There's still people coming into the waiting room, so you might just want to
okay, so I'll keep a watch on that. Sure.
Yeah. So yeah, it's funny that you said the word crack. A lot in Ireland, we often say, "What's the crack?" which means "What's the fun?" or "How are you?" So if someone says "What's the crack?" it means they're asking how you are, basically. So it's very confusing sometimes for tourists. But delighted you're all able to join Leah and I tonight, and I'm very happy that she chose me for her first one of these travel nights. I know she's going to have lots of fun ones coming up. So I'm just going to share my screen now. I do have a few slides to give you some
before we get started, Jonathan, sorry.
Yeah.
I have one poll that I want to do first. Is that okay?
Yeah, no problem.
I forgot. Okay, so we're going to hit you guys up with a poll, and that means it's going to pop up on your screen. We have 2 questions to start with. So I'm going to launch this poll, and then you should be able to answer the questions, and we'll just take a quick little survey. So answer them at your own pace. I'll give you a few seconds to do that. Wow, lots of answers coming in. This is good.
Oh, lots haven't been yet, so hopefully they'll be inspired to go after tonight.
Yeah, Wow. The majority of you have not been, so that's not surprising. Okay, so it looks like everybody's answered the questions. I'm going to end the polling here now. We'll show you the results. So here we go. 64% have not been, 36 have. What interests you most about Ireland? The scenery wins. Hands down, it is the scenery. But the history, castles coming in there, and the people. Awesome. Okay. Sorry, Jonathan.
Oh, that's perfect.
Keep going. Okay.
I often forget to do the polls even when I make them. So that's good.
Okay. Well, I'll remind you. I'll jump in here once in a while.
Yeah, no problem. So first of all, my name is Jonathan, as Leah said. I'm delighted to be here tonight. I am from Ireland myself. I'm from Dublin, born and raised. So spent most of my time growing up in Dublin and spent my summers in the lovely Donegal up in the northwest of Ireland where my mother was from. So I'll talk a bit about Donegal a little later on. But just a bit about who Royal Irish Tours are, or we're also known as RIT Vacations. We're a lovely family-owned and operated company based in Richmond Hill, Ontario. So our owner, Ian Duffy, is from Ireland, fell in love with a Canadian 30 years ago, and moved to Canada and set up roots in Richmond Hill. People always ask why our office is in Richmond Hill, which is about 40 minutes north of Toronto. It's because it's a 5-minute walk to our owner, Ian's house. But Irish and Scottish roots very much run deep within the company. A lot of our staff are from either Ireland or Scotland. And we are Canada's leading tour operator selling Ireland. And we only sell Ireland, England, Scotland, and Wales. So we really are experts in those destinations. We're celebrating 19 years in business. So next year will be a big celebration for us, our 20th year. And I hope many of you will be able to come experience Ireland with us next year. So some of the reasons why Ireland is such a popular destination, I know Leah talked about a few of them, and things like food and people, of course, are often not the reason people want to go, but often the reason they want to come back. But in that poll, we saw scenery was obviously a big appeal. But they say in Ireland we have the Céad Míle Fáilte, which means the 100,000 welcomes. So no matter where you go on the island, you'll meet lots of friendly locals along the way. You know, if you're lost on a driving holiday on the West Coast, ask a local for directions. They'll try their best to get you on your way. They might even ask you what your name is, where you're from, what you're doing there. They're not being nosy, they're just being very friendly. They might even buy you a drink in the pub later on that day if they see you. But we really do pride ourselves on warm hospitality wherever you go. The people you meet in pubs, the people you meet in restaurants, the people you meet in shops as you go throughout the country will really make the trip. Of course, getting to Ireland from Canada is easier now than it was in the past. Direct flights from Calgary, of course, with WestJet Streamliner, and that was their most successful European route of the 3 routes they did launch. Paris and London, they launched at the same time. I know they moved Paris now to Rome, but the Dublin one was extremely successful, so hopefully they continue that for many years to come. And of course, lots of great access from the major gateways like Vancouver, Toronto and Montreal, so you can get great connectors from Edmonton or any smaller regional airports as well to many of those places. It's only about 8.5 to 9 hours flight when you actually do take the flight, so very easy and comfortable to get to. Of course, the history and culture, lots of people with Irish roots in Canada, and a lot of people will go to trace their ancestry or just visit and experience a castle that might be 2,000 or 3,000 years old. So it really is amazing the amount of rich history that you do get in Ireland. So of course, iconic scenery as well. So on the West Coast, and I'll go through the different destinations in Ireland, each of the different locations. But the scenery, especially on the rugged West Coast and in the North, is absolutely fantastic. People are always blown away by the amount of different shades of green they'll see in any one day on a trip around Ireland. So these cliffs here are on the West Coast of Ireland, where there's lots of beautiful, beautiful high sea cliffs. The food, which Leah talked about briefly, I know when she brought her group last year, they went to Tracy Jeffrey's house, which is a lovely lady who runs Northern Ireland food tours, and she actually brings people into her home for a baking demonstration. And what did she serve you when you were there, Leah? Did you get chowder?
Oh, no, we didn't get chowder, but we got farl, soda farl, and we got to get our hands right in the dough. So that was really nice too. And then she had a bit of different types of soda bread also on the side, as well as her different butter with the lavender in it. So.
Oh, nice. Nice. Yeah, when we were there, we got to try her sloe gin that she had made with berries she had picked from her garden. So the food wherever you go in Ireland is really fantastic. We really pride ourselves on locally sourced ingredients. You'll often be drinking a beer or a whiskey that you've never heard of before that may be 10 or 15 miles from down the road. Same with all the food. It's often lovely fresh seafood or fresh meat that's come from a local farmer. A lot of the hotels we use in Northern Ireland have a little booklet at breakfast, which will tell you where your eggs came from that morning, who the farmer was of your pork sausages, etc. So it's a really nice touch, and we really pride ourselves on that locally sourced food. And of course, as a result of all our grass-fed animals, we have some fantastic dairy products. So the butter, we have world famous butter, but also lots of wonderful artisan cheeses as well as you go. So you'll never go hungry in Ireland. Music, of course, in all the little small towns, you'll often get live music in many of the bars and restaurants. And music is such a big part of our culture. We always like to include an Irish entertainment evening at the end of a trip. But even in any of the small towns, you'll meet lots of friendly locals who'll be having a sing-song in the bars. So it's really wonderful when you're there. I'm starting to miss home just doing this presentation here. Just in terms of what Royal Irish Tours sell, so coach tours are the main part of our business. So that's 38 people maximum on a 45-seater coach. So we only sell in Canada as well. So you're with like-minded fellow travelers from across Canada on our tours, and all our guides been with us for 10 plus years, and they only work for us. So they have great stories related to Irish Canadian history and things as you go. We also sell smaller sightseeing tours. So they're smaller group tours of maximum 16 guests. And there's lots of other different experiences as well. Driving holidays, if you're comfortable driving on the left. If you want your own personal driver guide with you, chauffeur drive is a lovely option. And we also do some rail journeys as well, which I'll touch on. But what we always say sets us apart is our staff. So Joe O'Connor is our most famous coach driver and guide. He's been with us for 19 years. We actually have 3 Joes working for us, so people always come back raving about Joe.
We had Joe Russell, and he was amazing. He brought his guitar with him and sang for us. It was awesome.
Yeah, he does a lot of the custom groups. He's brilliant. And there's another Joe as well, Joe Nix, who does our Manor Royal series. So they're all fantastic. But we do tend to have more inclusions on our coach tours than a lot of the other operators sell in Ireland. So if you are comparing our price like for like with others, just look at what's included. Most of your evening meals are generally included with us, as well as the lovely Irish entertainment evening. All 4-star hotels, unless you do our Manor Royal, where you would have lots of 5-star inclusions too. In terms of accommodations, we always recommend doing a mix on the tours. So if you're doing a driving holiday, we'd recommend maybe a night in a castle, a night in a manor house, maybe a few nights in a bed and breakfast, and really get that authentic Irish experience. But the hotels we use in the cities are always lovely 4-star hotels, very centrally located. But I always recommend at least staying one night in a castle. It's about the same price as staying in a 4-star hotel in Dublin or Belfast. So I highly recommend at least one night in a castle. I know Leah's group last year stayed in Loch Esk, was it?
Yes, we stayed at the Loch Esk Castle, which is the middle hotel there on your right-hand side of your screen, the one in the middle. The staff there are lovely. They come out onto the front and greet you when your coach drives in, and then they also come out onto the front step and wave as you leave. That was one of another memorable part of our trip. But also, I was going to also say, what we also loved about our trip too is that every hotel has a story, it seems like, something behind, and they know the history of who even built the place, when it was built, what family lived there, and yeah, it's so interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, some of the properties around Ireland, there'll always be a ghost story or two you might hear as well.
Yes, we stayed at that one hotel that was the insane asylum. It was so interesting. Some in our group were not really thrilled about staying there, but others thought it was the neatest thing ever. So yeah, it was good.
Yeah, there's always some really great stories, and you get a lot of that mythology as you go through Ireland. You know, I know people always stereotype and they talk about leprechauns and stuff, but there's a reason they talk about that, because it's part of Irish mythology from hundreds of years ago, and there's lots of stories about fairies and leprechauns and things. There's actually a tree in Ireland somewhere where there was going to be a highway built through the field, and they were going to knock down a tree. But apparently fairies said it couldn't be knocked down, or it was a sacred tree. So the council got permission to knock it down, but no one was brave enough to knock it down. So they ended up moving the highway 2 miles down the road to avoid knocking down the tree. So while people say they don't believe in fairies, no one was brave enough to knock down that tree. So
that's crazy.
Yeah.
I think we were even told that some of the mounds are protected in Ireland because fairies live under them. And it's actually in the Irish law. So that was an interesting tidbit.
Yeah, absolutely. So we always like to include some Irish dancing and entertainment, generally on the last night of a tour. So we have 3 or 4 really good pubs on the outskirts of Dublin that we like to include Irish entertainment evenings in. When we're in Scotland, that picture on the right is actually Scotland. We do lovely ceilidhs in Scotland as well, so a bit of Scottish dancing and singing. But the ones in Ireland are fantastic. You get a lovely traditional Irish meal, a bit of Irish whiskey, and a tidbit for you: if you don't want to get up on stage, don't make eye contact with any of the dancers, because they will drag you up on stage. I've been in trouble a few times by making eye contact with the dancers, and then they'll come down and try to get the crowd involved, and they'll drag you up. But it's always a lot of fun and a really great way to end your trip. But I know quite a lot of you haven't been to Ireland, so I thought sharing a map first would give you a good idea of the size and all the different areas of Ireland. So just to give you an idea. And I also say
that Ireland is like a teddy bear. Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
I don't know if they can see it, but it's like a teddy bear sitting on his hiney, facing the left.
Yeah.
It's kind of neat. I've never seen Ireland before in those eyes, but when we went on our tour, I remember, I think it was Siobhan, she pointed that out to us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It does indeed. And the map in Game of Thrones in the TV series is actually an upside down map of Ireland, I do believe.
Oh, no way. Wow.
That could be a myth, but I'm pretty sure. Yeah, it's just an upside down map of Ireland. And there's lots of Northern Irish filming locations that are used in Game of Thrones as well. But just to give you an idea of just how small Ireland is, from Dublin, on the east there, all the way over to Galway, is less than a 3-hour drive, and from Derry in the very north to Cork in the south is about 9 hours. So that's like a commute in Alberta. But it is very small. In a 1 week, 2 week long trip, you really can take in quite a lot of the country. But there's 4 kind of very distinct areas, or well-known areas, that the tourist board will always market, which I'll go through now. The first one being Northern Ireland. But first of all, we just have 2 coach tours, which I'll mention, that kind of do a full lap of Ireland. So if you do have the time and are interested in doing a coach tour, I always recommend either our Shamrock Royal, which is a lovely 4-star itinerary that has 2 and 3 night stays wherever possible, and does a full anti-clockwise lap of Ireland in 15 days, or our Manor Royal, which is about the same price for 4 less days. The big difference is slightly higher end accommodations, so lots of 5-star inclusions, 2 nights in a luxury Irish castle, and also some really high-end dinners and stuff, 4 nights in fantastic 5 stars, but it still does see most of the country. So those are 2 really good coach tours if you want to do a full lap of Ireland by coach. If you're doing a driving holiday or a chauffeur drive, you could really do a full lap of Ireland in maybe 10 or 11 days is perfect. And how long was your group, Leah? It was 12 days, wasn't it?
We were 10 days.
10 days, yeah. And
10
you
days.
saw, I mean, you saw quite a lot in your 10 days as well. So
Yeah.
you can do it in 10 days, but if you have the 2 weeks, I highly recommend that Shamrock Royal trip.
Yeah, we missed a bit on the, I would say the southeastern part over there, over near Cork and whatnot. So got to go back.
Beautiful area. Yeah. Well, in our Manor Royal tour, we stay 2 nights in this lovely castle on the screen here, Kilronan Castle. But there are so many beautiful castles all throughout Ireland, Lough Esk and Donegal being one of my favourites. This Kilronan Castle is fantastic as well. But there's no shortage of castles. That is the big difference, I would say, between Ireland and, Scotland and England. While there are lots of castles in Scotland and England, I think they're a bit more affordable in Ireland. There's a lot more that aren't still owned by families. There's a lot of investors who come in and turn these beautiful hotels into 4- and 5-star properties while still keeping the history of the property alive, which is great. So firstly, I'll just talk about Northern Ireland, which is that bit up in the north, starting in Belfast and travelling up the Causeway Coast to the Giant's Causeway. And one of the highlights of Belfast is visiting the Titanic Belfast Visitor Experience. And that's actually the city where Titanic was built. They built this visitor experience in 2012 to commemorate the 100th year anniversary of the sinking of the ship on its fateful maiden voyage. There's no artifacts or anything in here. It's just a 9-gallery museum that tells you the story of the Titanic from its shipbuilding history in Ireland. You see what it was like on board as a first-class passenger, as a third-class passenger. You hear voices of survivors from the Titanic, so it is a very moving experience, fully self-guided, and we generally give people 2 hours if they're on one of our coach tours. If you're going on your own, on a driving holiday, for example, lots of people will spend 5 or 6 hours in there if they have an interest in maritime history and things. It is a fantastic exhibition, brilliantly done, and it's been voted as one of the best visitor attractions in the world. So a must-see when you're in Belfast. But of course, Belfast and Northern Ireland has been in the news for all the wrong reasons, maybe 30 years ago with the Troubles. So it's great to see how far it's come from there, but you really do hear a lot of that history when you're there. So you learn about, sorry, my slideshow has messed up here. Give me a sec.
I was just going to say, I'm not sure how many people know, but not everyone knows that Northern Ireland and Ireland are 2 different countries, but yet on the same land and work together. Yeah, I think that was something else that I learned when I went there. They have different money, different currency, but yet there is no real border. It's just that the lines on the road change as you're driving north. So that's about it.
Yeah, the lines in the road change and the signposts change from kilometers per hour in the Republic to miles per hour in the north, because
Right.
Britain and the UK are still in miles like the Americans. But it goes back 800 years, kind of the history, and you learn all this kind of history of the British invasions back 700 or 800 years ago when you're in Belfast. And up until 30 years ago, there still was that big divide. And there's lots of wonderful murals. If you do the Black Taxi Cab tour or do a panoramic tour of the city, there still is a peace wall that separates Protestant and Catholic communities in Belfast. It's more of a symbol now, and the gates are always open, so it's great to see how far it's come. But that was built by the British Army in the 1960s to stop the trouble, the sectarian violence. So it's amazing to see how far it's come since the peace agreement in the late 90s, and you learn a lot about that rich history. And now tourism is such an important part of Northern Ireland's economy. It's really great to see how far they've come, and there are lots of fantastic attractions as you go, such as the murals as you do the tour around, as well as when you go outside Belfast, you get to the Giant's Causeway, the Causeway Coastal Route, which is one of the highlights of any trip to Ireland. Seeing the Giant's Causeway, the UNESCO World Heritage Site in Northern Ireland. These basalt columns were formed billions of years ago from volcanic eruptions, unless you believe the Irish mythology, that they were actually formed from the giant Finn McCool when he was fighting another giant. I don't know what's happening with it.
Your screen has gone wonky. It's drawing lines.
Okay.
I was just going to say one thing that was really interesting when we went to the Giant's Causeway. It's hard to believe that the rocks are naturally formed that way.
Yeah, no, it is crazy that
It looks like somebody took a saw and cut the rocks into the shape. They're all hexagonal and cover the whole coastal side right down to the water, and they're black. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and there's 40,000 of them around. So it really is amazing. There's a lovely, about 1.5 kilometers hike down to the rocks. So lots of people will actually do the hike down to the rocks, and then they'll get the bus back up. So if you have a nice clear day, it's nice to walk down because it's downhill. But if you have it's about a 45-minute walk down or so. So if you have 3 hours, it's great to walk both ways and get to see the rocks. But lots of people will either take the bus down or up. You can take the bus both ways, no problem. And we give guests about 2 hours if they're on a coach tour there. So they'll generally go down by foot or by coach, have a wee walk around the rocks, come back up, have tea and a scone in the visitor centre, and then continue on their journey. But the Causeway Coastal Route the whole way up the north coast of Ireland is really fantastic, and you get to see so much fantastic scenery as you go through there as well. Let's see if this will work for us now. Then after the Giant's Causeway, as you continue along that Causeway Coastal Route, you get to the city of Derry, where you do a walled city walking tour, which for me is probably the highlight of any trip to Ireland, the walking tour around the walls. You learn 500 years of history in a 45-minute walk around the walls. We use a guide called Ronan McNamara, and he actually makes often people on his walk cry because it's just so moving how he tells the story of growing up during the times of the Troubles there. And Derry, in the city of Derry, they're 95% Catholic, so most of them would be, side wanting a united Ireland. And Derry was, where there was a lot of violence back in the 80s and 90s around there. But you learn a lot of this rich history as you do a lovely walking tour. It is one of the only remaining walled cities in Europe, and a really beautiful, beautiful city. There's some great hotels right in the center of the city you're able to stay in as well. If you don't have full 2 weeks to travel around and you want to do a coach tour, we have a lovely sightseeing tour, the Causeway and Castles, that takes in a couple of nights in Belfast at the Titanic Hotel, which is a beautiful hotel right opposite the Titanic attraction, up to the Causeway, does that lovely walking tour in Derry, and then goes on to Donegal. Next year, we're actually looking to perhaps stay in Derry City that night and then go on to Donegal the next day. So that should be really nice. And then the final night is in Kilronan Castle, that lovely castle that I showed you earlier on. After Derry, it's time to explore kind of the North Wall Atlantic Way and go down the west coast, kind of anything on the west coast of Ireland is considered the Wall Atlantic Way, from Malin Head, the most northerly point in Ireland, to Mizen Head right at the bottom, and coming into Cork. So as you start in the north, you have the likes of beautiful Donegal. Here's me at Slieve Leave Cliffs, and of course Leah has also been there. Absolutely fantastic attraction and some of the highest sea cliffs in Europe. Do you want to mention something about it maybe, Leah?
Well, what I remember from this is I think you can see Newfoundland from there. It's the closest point to Newfoundland anyways, but when we went there, it was amazing, the water crashing up against on the rocks, and it was just really, it reminded me of pictures I've seen of Newfoundland. I've never been to Newfoundland before, but it does remind me of that, and I think the cliffs were much larger than I had ever imagined Ireland would have cliffs like that. But I think, are you not from Malin Head? Is that where you're from?
No, I'm from not far from Slieve League, closer to Donegal town. Malin Head's right in the north, but yeah.
So close to where this picture is taken.
Yeah, probably 45 minutes from here. So I would have spent a lot of summers hiking up around Slieve League Cliff. But the Cliffs of Moher, which are absolutely fantastic, further south, are actually nowhere near the same size as this, but just you're able to get right onto the edge of the cliffs, and they are very dramatic and absolutely amazing. But these ones are some of the highest you'll visit. And of course, you can't go to Donegal without a lovely visit to Loch Esk Castle. An absolutely amazing 5-star hotel. And it's just the people there, they're so homely in Donegal and in the small towns. Everyone is just so friendly, and you know, the only time I love living in Canada, but whenever I go to small towns on the west coast of Ireland, I always have dreams of maybe moving back and find a nice house in a small town and living out there. So Loch Esk Castle is definitely one of the highlights. As you travel further down south, as I said, lots of really quaint towns and villages. We tend to stay in Westport on a lot of our coach tours because it's a really beautiful town. This is Westport, lovely bridge. It has one of Matt Malloy's, one of the most famous pubs in Ireland, a lovely pink building, but lots of great restaurants and bars as you go there. Lots of great artisan shops as well, and a really, really nice place to visit. As you travel further south, I don't have any slides on Galway, but Galway is another amazing city. It's the capital of culture for 2020. Unfortunately, won't be getting too many visitors as the European capital of culture because there obviously isn't anyone traveling at the moment, but hopefully that will continue into 2021 and lots of people will visit then. But this is me on a jaunting ride in Killarney. Jaunting is basically going on the back of a horse and cart with a local and his horse or pony. The guy we had, Toddy, was absolutely hilarious as he brought us through. Halfway through, he starts waving to some guy standing on the roof, and he said, I asked him who that was, and he goes, oh, that's my house, and that's my brother fixed my roof up there. He has his horses called, Jimmy and John and Sarah, like his children. So it's very funny and a really unique experience. The ones we use are slightly more luxurious than the one I went on, and we got a bit of rain on our tour, but you do go on roads in the Gap of Dunloe that cars don't go on. So it really is like going back in time, and absolutely fantastic. Did you do that on your tour, Leah?
Yeah, we did. We went in the park in Killarney. Got off the coach, and then we met all the drivers in their horse and buggy, and we divvied it up and went on into the park. And then there is a castle there too in the park that we went and explored as well. They dropped us off for about a half an hour so we could walk around and explore that part of it.
Yeah, Ross Castle, that's really nice as well. Mm-hmm. So I've actually done it before where if you're staying in the Killarney Park Hotel, which is a lovely 5-star, the Europe Hotel, you can actually get a cruise across the lake to that castle. So a really nice way to do it as well. As you're down in the southwest, of course, Cliffs of Moher, which I mentioned earlier, are absolutely amazing cliffs as well. And I know Leah's group, when they did it last year, they saw it slightly differently. They went out in a cruise, out in the water, and got to see the cliffs from underneath, which is another really, really nice way to do it.
We had so many people see the cliffs from above, and it's something that I thought would be neat to actually see them right from their face. So we went to Doolin, and Doolin has some ferries there and boats that you can get on. So we jumped on one of those, went out. It was gorgeous. It was so sunny. Some of our pictures didn't turn out the best because it was so sunny, but it was so beautiful. And then we headed back to Doolin and checked out the Doolin chocolate factory there.
Oh,
that was,
nice.
Yeah, a nice way to end it.
Absolutely, yeah. So yeah, getting to that kind of the southwest of Ireland, lots of our coach tours will go there. If you're on a driving holiday, of course, you can go there. But if you only have a few days, our Best of the West is a lovely 5-day one that will take you in that cruise, do the jaunting riding Killarney, as well as taking in Blarney Stone, get the Gift of the Gab, Spanish Point, and a few other lovely places. Well, something a little different if anyone is more adventurous and active seeking. We do have adventure tours with a company called Vagabond. So these are maximum 13 guests in an off-road vehicle. That trailer at the back actually has everyone's luggage in it. So by day, they do things like surfing, kayaking, horseback riding, and by night, they stay in nice 3- and 4-star hotels. So a really kind of very different experience. For these tours, people from all around the world will do them. So the main market will be, you know, West Coasters in the US, a lot of Canadians, particularly from Alberta and British Columbia, as well as Australians and New Zealanders mainly. So really nice tours, maximum 13 guests, something a little different. Then as we go across to the east of Ireland, Ireland's ancient east is kind of what this area is known as, and it's kind of 5,000 years of European history in a really compact area. So it's really rich in history and lots of wonderful stories. Lots of people would have left from Cork, Waterford, Wexford during the times of the famine to find a better life in North America, many ending up in Canada, of course, but lots of really fantastic castles and historic places you can explore. A lot of the attractions there really bring the experience to life. You'll often have live actors dressed up in attire of knights and things from 700 or 800 years ago, and they'll act out performances and stuff. So it really does make the experience. Of course, this is Dunbrody Famine Ship in New Ross, and a lot of people actually would have left this port on a ship this size and to travel across the Atlantic to find a better life, often landing in Newfoundland, New York, Boston, and many ended up in Grosse Ile, Quebec. And there's actually the biggest famine memorial is in Grosse Ile, Quebec, where 5,000 Irish people are buried who didn't survive after their trip over on one of these coffin ships, they were known as, because about 50% of the people wouldn't survive the journey. So you know, that was only in the mid 1800s, so it's incredible that could happen. Ireland was highly reliant on the potato, and obviously there was a failure of the potato crop. So 1 million people died and 1 million people emigrated. There's still less people living on the island of Ireland now than there were in the 1850s. So it's incredible. The population still never came back. But as a result of this, there are over 70 million of us all around the world. The Irish do like to travel, even not in times of hardship. So I moved here to Canada when there was no hardship. So we do like to travel, but we often do come back, but many people, of course, stayed away. And as a result, there's so many people with Irish ancestry all around the world.
This is
as
also
you travel,
the area, I was just going to say, of the Blarney Castle. You showed a picture there of the Blarney Castle.
yeah.
That's where you get the gift of gab.
Yeah.
If you kiss the
gift
stone here.
You get the gift of the gab, the gift of eloquence. So yeah, there's often a long line to line up to get to kiss the stone, and you actually have to bend over backwards because there's a big gap and there's actually a helper that helps you lean over to kiss it. So a lot of people have that on their bucket list when they get there. So really a quirky thing to do. We do stop there on most of our tours on the way back to Dublin. Of course, then most people will either start or end their experience in Dublin. Just to give you an idea, Dublin to Belfast is only about 2-hour drive, and Dublin to Galway, as I mentioned, about 3 hours. So often people will arrive into Dublin and then straight away just go to the countryside and then maybe drop off their car and spend their last 2 nights in Dublin. There's lots of really great attractions like Trinity College, which has the Book of Kells, one of the oldest books in the world. There's me and my boss, Connor Duffy, who's the owner's son, enjoying a couple of drinks in Temple Bar in January during the Temple Bar traditional Irish music festival they have every January. But Temple Bar is wonderful all year round. The Temple Bar, of course, being the most famous and well-known pub, but lots of really great pubs throughout Temple Bar and all around Dublin. Temple Bar is lovely cobbled streets, which has lots of great restaurants, artisan shops. There's lovely food market there every Saturday as well, and lots of kind of artisan jewellery shops. So lots of people will come to the Temple Bar area to get their shopping in and stuff. There's also Grafton Street, which is a very well-known shopping street. And so we often give kind of a full free day on our coach tours at the end, where people can go and explore the best of Dublin. Lots of people want to go to the Guinness Storehouse, for example. There's the Irish Whiskey Museum now as well, which tells the history of Irish whiskey. And there's also numerous distilleries, but I love just walking around Trinity College, seen there on the left, the oldest university in Ireland, which opened in the 1500s, and it's a really amazing place right in the heart of the city. And there's lots of great rail trips around Ireland as well, so people can travel from city to city by the local train, or you can actually do a rail journey around. So we do have a few short ones that are 1 or 2 days long, where you would basically kind of semi-guided. You get the train on your own. You meet the group at the train station. Once you arrive at the new destination, you're met by a coach and do some smaller sightseeing tours, maybe a city stay, and then come back however many days later. So really something a little different if you want to do that. But as I said, my favorite way to get around Ireland would always be on a driving holiday and doing a mix of maybe bed and breakfast, hotels, maybe a castle or a manor house as you go. And the picture there is actually of the Causeway Coastal Route, that car is heading south. So lots of really nice beaches. Obviously, people don't associate beaches with Ireland. There's not too many people sunbathing on them, but they are really beautiful to have a wee stroll on.
And I was going to say something I never thought they did in Ireland was surfing. When we went there, we were really surprised on the coast to see surfers out there. Of course, they had their wetsuits on. It wasn't that warm when we were there in October, but they were still out there surfing. So that was something new that I learned about Ireland.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, you get lots of wonderful beaches on the north coast, and on the northwest and the west coast. That's where all the surfing is. They say Ireland and Portugal are the 2 best places in Europe for the surfing, the lovely Atlantic waves there. Here's me on a driving holiday last year. So this is one of our mid-sized vehicles. See the little white sign there in my window that actually says drive on the left, a reminder to tell you to drive on the left.
Do tell what's in the background there.
Oh yeah, that's Ben Bulben, which is a lovely flat mountain in Sligo, and that's the area where the poet W.B. Yeats would have spent a lot of his time. So a really nice area as you're coming down from Donegal. You get to Sligo, but we just, I went here with my girlfriend. We just decided, we were traveling from Westport to Donegal, and we just decided to get lost along the way, and took some back roads and ended up, that's actually the driveway to someone's house. So we just stopped to get a few nice pictures beside a couple of fields as well. So, but beautiful scenery, and there's no better place to get lost than in Ireland on a driving holiday when the weather's not too bad. We also do cottage rentals, which are self-catering accommodations. They don't look like much from the outside, but on the inside, they're generally comfortable homes, and these are very reasonably priced. Lots of people will do these if they want to kind of get away from it for 4 or 5 days and just stay in a nice home on the West Coast if they don't want to be, moving every day. It's a really nice option as well. Be self-catering, and then you just get your own groceries and things, or eat out in lots of the nice restaurants locally. But I always recommend a bed and breakfast stay, the real authentic Irish experience. Get your full Irish breakfast off the owners of the house. It's often retired couples whose kids have moved on, and they've grown up, they've moved out, and now they just want to be hospitable, and they've turned their lovely home into tourist accommodation. And so often they might have 2 or 3 rooms in the house. There's a website, bnbireland.com, which is the site which lists all of them. So when you book your trip with us, you would get a link from Leah where you can go on and pre-book your bed and breakfast, or you can just go as you please and turn up at the bed and breakfast. You would have vouchers in your documents once you book. So each voucher is payment at the bed and breakfast, which you just hand in. So some people like to be organized and pre-book them, while others, like myself, would just like to get lost and just find a bed and breakfast. If the bed and breakfast is full, Mary will call her friend Jimmy down the road to see if he has space. So we don't recommend it in the busier areas, but if you're on a driving holiday, in the northwest of Ireland or something, and there are over 800 bed and breakfasts in Ireland, very easy to find, and I highly recommend at least one night in the bed and breakfast when you're there.
Yes, and you speak about the breakfast. It is a breakfast of champions, the Irish breakfast. There's everything you can imagine to eat for breakfast. So you will not go hungry. You could probably just eat breakfast and then snack the rest of the day, and you'll be good.
Yeah, we generally don't include lunch on our tours because we know people are well fed at breakfast, and then they'd always get an evening meal generally included. But in the hotels, generally it's always buffet. So there's your continental if you want your croissants, your lovely Irish breads, and there's your porridge and things. And if you're in Northern Ireland, and some of the hotels will actually have whiskey beside the porridge, which is a delicacy people put in their porridge. So they have porridge with a little bit of honey and a little spoon of whiskey. Gives it a nice bit of flavour, especially up in Northern Ireland. It's very popular. They add in Bushmills. And if you're staying in a bed and breakfast, they'll often get your full Irish fry, as well as tea and coffee and scones and things, which is always great. If you're not comfortable driving on the left, you still do have a lovely option to get around if you want to do your own private trip. Use a chauffeur driver. So it's basically your own personal driver guide with you for the duration of the trip, or however many days you book them for. So if you don't know what you want to do, they'll sit down with you on day one and kind of chat about your interests, and they can just bring you to lovely places along the way. Your accommodation will be pre-booked, so you're kind of free to do whatever you like. During that day, you basically have 8 hours driving time for the driver guide, and they'll bring you wherever you like. I always recommend a night in a manor house or a castle as well. And manor houses, often the same family may have lived in a manor house for 400 or 500 years, and now they've turned them into lovely luxury accommodations. And they'll often always have wonderful gardens and things to explore. And there's lots of beautiful manor houses that aren't even accommodations that you can visit, for afternoon tea and things. All the National Trust properties in Northern Ireland have fantastic gardens. Most of them have full-time gardeners, and they're all protected by the National Trust, and they have some fantastic old historic houses that you can always explore as well. We'll always include 1 or 2 of them on our tours. In the picture here is Hayfield Manor in Cork, which is one of my favourite hotels in Ireland, a beautiful 5-star manor house hotel. And as I said before, the castle stays are really a must when in Ireland. At least one night. This is Dromoland Castle down in the southwest of Ireland near Shannon Airport. So if people are flying out of Shannon Airport, often they would do this as their final night. It's only 20 minutes from Shannon Airport, and lots of great connections via the US if you're going to the further west in Canada to Alberta and Vancouver and places. So as I said, it's about the same price to stay in a castle as it would be to stay in a lovely 4-star hotel in Dublin. So that's just a few slides, hopefully inspired you somewhat to maybe want to travel to Ireland in the future. And thank you, Leah, for having me on. And
Yeah, I'm
I'll
going to
pass
do
it
a
back over to you.
poll, I think, right now.
Sounds good.
We have one here just with 2 questions. So one is, which would you rather? An evening spent in an Irish pub with some good crack and live Irish music, a sunny afternoon on a Doolin boat touring the cliffs of Moher, a free day of strolling and shopping downtown Dublin, a morning in a local baker's kitchen learning how to make Irish soda bread, or sip on an Irish coffee while discovering how they weave tweed in Donegal. That's question 1. Question 2. What type of Ireland trip would you be interested in doing? And you can pick more than one here. You don't have to just choose one. You can pick more than one. So self-drive holiday, coach tour, rail journey, chauffeur drive, or other.
Lots of great options.
Yeah. Okay. Everyone is voting, choosing their top one here. All right. Couple more seconds before we end the poll. You don't have to vote, but it'd be nice to know what you're thinking. All right. Looks like most are for the self-drive holiday so far. And then
Nice.
others, the coach tour. We did the coach tour. Some people don't think they'd like a coach tour, but you know, the best part about it is that it's all planned out for you. You don't have to waste any time while you're in destination trying to figure out what you're going to do next. So I'm going to end the polling here and show you what we have. The winner for what you would rather do is check out the cliffs of Moher on a Doolin boat.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, we have the evening spent in an Irish pub with some good crack, live Irish music. Awesome. Okay, thank you for voting. The next one here, I'm just going to stop sharing results. Now, we are going to just get you to do one more here real quick. And this one is, which answer sums up your experience tonight? I knew all this already. I learned a bunch about Ireland tonight. I really enjoyed this travel talk. I learned a couple new things. And this makes me want to go to Ireland tomorrow. I only wish we could, but
Yeah,
as soon as we can.
absolutely. And fingers crossed it's sooner rather than later. As of now, there's no travel until at least July to Ireland, but we don't foresee the season really starting until September, if at all, this year. So we're really trying to inspire people for 2021 travel at this time, because we know it's a lot of uncertainty with the rest of this year, unfortunately.
Okay, so we'll end our polling. It looks like most really enjoyed the travel talk. They learned a lot tonight, so that's great, and they all do want to go. A lot of them want to go. Okay, I am going to just, if Jonathan can give us a few more minutes. If you have any questions about what you heard tonight, about some of the areas, and there's a little chat box. If you're on your laptop or on your computer desktop, there is a chat box if you move your mouse to the bottom that you can click on and type in your questions there if you'd like. Otherwise, I'm not sure how you do it. I think there's like 3 dots on the phone where you can click on that and find the chat box there. See if there's any questions about that. Feel free to type them out and we'll answer them before we let Jonathan go.
Yeah, I'm just moving to my Irish castle now in the background.
Oh, which castle is this one?
This is Kilronan Castle in the background now.
Okay, and that is where?
That's in Roscommon, so it's about an hour south of Derry, Londonderry, and about an hour and a half west of Belfast. So really nice area. Yeah.
Yes. Doesn't look like there's a whole lot of questions, so you must have answered them all. I was going to say, yeah, one of our highlights was you mentioned Tracy Jeffrey going to her place. And then we had so much Irish soda bread left over that we ended up taking it with us to Giant's Causeway, and then did our little hike down to the rocks, back up to the visitor center, and then we had our lunch there eating our soda bread when we were hungry again. So that was kind of neat.
Nice.
But, oh, we have one question there. Wondering about cost.
Yeah, so in
I
terms of
wonder-
the cost, I mean, if you're doing like our 15-day coach tour, you're looking, including flights, about, you know, just over 5,000 Canadian dollars. That would include most of your evening meals, all your breakfasts. But on a driving holiday for 2,500 per person, you could do a really nice week or 10-day long trip around Ireland. So it is quite economical to go. You're looking at about, you know, if you're doing a driving holiday, maybe about $10 to $15 per person for your lunch every day. Breakfast would always be included, and then dinner, anything from kind of $25 to $50, depending on if you're having a few glasses of wine or a few drinks with it. Dublin will be more expensive, as well as Galway, than some of the other areas. So you get some great value if you go to some of the smaller towns, but not overly expensive. I mean, for kind of $3,000 all in per person, including your spending money, you could have a really nice 8 to 10 day trip around Ireland, I would say.
Okay, perfect. So there is one more little survey that I'm going to send out for everyone just before they leave us. And that is, I'm wondering what you would like to see more future travel talks about. So we have a river cruise one planned for Thursday night at 7 p.m. If you haven't signed up for that, I sent it out in an email. So if you would like me to send it again, you can email me, let me know. Also, Jonathan is going to be joining us again, like I said, probably in May, where we're going to talk about Scotland. He's helping me put together my group trip that I'm taking in September of 2021. And anyone is welcome to come with us on that one. It is a coach tour, and last time we had 21 people in our group. So we would welcome you to join us on that. He'll be telling us a little more of the details of what we'll be seeing, where we'll be stopping, and also about Scotland in general. So
Yeah,
I have put up the next poll there. So let me know what you are most interested in. You can click on more than one for this one, and I will do my best to get on inviting some of our great reps that we have across Canada for different destinations, for different tour companies, and offer them in the weeks to come. So looks like
Leah,
yeah, go ahead.
Leah, I see someone was asking about the best time to visit Ireland.
Oh, yeah.
I always say the spring and the fall are really nice times. In terms of the direct flights, though, from Alberta, they're kind of May till September. So I always say May and June are a good time. You're looking at about 15 to 20 during the day and maybe 10 degrees at night. So similar to what it might be like here in May or so. But the season's kind of been extended, into kind of October. It's still really nice in Ireland. If you're going to Scotland, it can get a little chilly in October in some of the northern parts of Scotland, but in Ireland it's still fairly temperate, around 15 degrees during the day. And people don't often go to Ireland, you're not going there for the sun. But from April to October will kind of be the main season. July and August you'd get the best weather, but you also get the most tourists at those times. So September is actually our most popular month, as well as May. But June and October are also lovely months to go, and even April is nice as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and Judy is wondering about payment plans.
Yeah, so we don't currently have any payment plans for our trip. So it's generally a $300 deposit at time of booking, and then full payment will be 60 days prior. But if you wanted to pay in advance in smaller installments, that's also okay as well. So some people, if they're booking a $7,000 per person trip, they might not want to pay $7,000 all up front 60 days before. So sometimes they might pay us $1,000 a month for a few months, which is fine as well. But we don't have any longer term payment plans, which I know some companies do offer.
Yeah, and that seems to be what some like to do. It's almost like a payment plan in its own little way, but pay the deposit and then keep putting a little bit towards it every month. So until you have that final payment date, which is 3 months prior. So it's works good. You said 60 days though, so that's only 2 months prior.
Yeah, 60 days is the final payment generally. Yeah, and someone asked about cancellation policy there. So generally the deposit is non-refundable. So up to 60 days before, you would lose the deposit if you cancelled. A lot of people will buy travel insurance, which of course you can buy through Leah, and that's always highly recommended. And you can get some plans where you can cancel for any reason, etc. But generally, if it's within 60 days, there are some cancellation fees. So it would be a loss of 50% if it's 30 to 45 days, for example, and less than 30 days would be loss of 100%. So unless you do have travel insurance. So we're hoping up to 60 days before is when people really know if they're going to be able to go. And you would only have put down a deposit up to that time. In certain circumstances, if you're not able to travel for some reason, but still would like to travel in the future, and we are doing that for anyone who's traveling this year, we'd give you a future travel voucher with that deposit that you can use on any tour in the future. So a lot of people take that option if they can't go.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the results from future travel talks. A lot of people would like to know more about destinations. That's great. And someone land tours and river cruising. Awesome. So that's coming up on Thursday night with Viking River Cruises. There are other river cruise companies though that we will be speaking with, and one of them is AMA Waterways. The other one that I'm going to be doing is with the Queen Steamboat down in southern US. They have some great itineraries as well on the Louisiana River. So we'll be checking in with them in May. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. And thank you, Jonathan, for joining us. I know it's late there and I said, I promise I had you tucked into bed by 10:30, but we're getting close. Anyways, I appreciate you staying up late though to join us. And for everyone else, I hope to see you in the future on some of our travel talks. Take care and stay sane through all this self-isolation. Keep busy. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Leah. Thanks for having me on. It's been great.
Have a great day, or rest of your day and evening. Okay, bye-bye.
Thanks.